7 o'clock by my cell phone, so I'm going to call this meeting to order.
Oh, I already did this. These are the modified conditions that Sierra sent.
Okay. So, welcome everyone. I first want to establish a quorum. We have everyone present except Bahi, and I don't remember her last name. Rezi? Rezi? So that's 6. We have a quorum. The first thing that we'll talk about, well, I just make sure anybody has a cell phone that it's on vibrate or off, just so that we don't have the meeting interrupted. And if there's anything on the agenda or any items not on the agenda that somebody'd like to comment on, we can't act on them, but we can certainly listen to it. So I'm going to open that session of the meeting. Seeing nobody coming forth, I'm going to close public comment for not on the agenda. The next thing on our consent calendar is the commission meeting minutes, which were left on the dais before we came. So I don't know if anybody's had a chance to read them.
No, I didn't.
So we're going to take a moment. Is there any corrections anybody sees? Do you have a motion to approve?
I'll second it.
I'll move to approve.
Oh, I thought you did make it.
No, I just said, is there a motion? I'm sorry. So now we do the vote. So all those in favor of the minutes as written, say aye.
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 3 of us.
Abstain. I wasn't there.
Abstain.
Okay, so does that mean it doesn't pass? We have to do this again?
It doesn't pass. So you can either continue them or the commissioners that are present but were not in attendance, even the new commissioners can vote as to the form of the minutes. It's really.
But here's the problem, Laurel wasn't present, was
Right.
it?
So
So how can we have a,
we can either defer it until the next meeting when Commissioner Orsi is in
Or is- yeah, right.
attendance, or if someone who wasn't here would be willing to vote as to the form,
I can vote for the form.
then we can go ahead and pass the minutes and do that.
Okay, I vote for the form. I withdraw my abstention.
Okay.
So then I show that Commissioner Moyes, right, do you want to know who, do we have to be on the record for who and what, as city attorney has asked?
Oh, yes, okay, so Bonner, McTighe, Gressick, and Wilson.
All say aye. There was no nay votes, and there were 2 abstentions.
Samick and
Meadows.
Got that?
Got it, thank you.
No problem. I want to be proper. The next order of business is the commission reorganization, election of the chair. Do I go first?
I nominate Jerry.
I'll second that nomination. Jerry, do you want to do that?
is this a plan?
Up to you.
I'm sure I'll do it. Okay, I'll do it again.
Well,
We
we're
all
all
have to do it again.
we all have to do it. I mean, I hate to put one of our
I'm
newer
okay.
commissioners.
All right.
Okay. Do we vote on it now? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any abstaining? Any say no? Motion carries unanimously. You're now in charge.
Pass over that gavel.
Oh, yeah.
So much fun.
This is so much fun.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I got coats. I got bike
It's easier
stuff.
to just pass the gavel.
You would think.
Do you want to pass the gavel? or you
Too
want
late.
sheets?
He delivers papers during the day.
Right. Is that because I go to your house? Did you want to run the meeting from here?
I mean, I could have, but better wait.
All right. Hey, better balance.
Okay.
Give me a second to get organized here and see what we got.
You have to do the vice chair.
We have to do the vice chair next.
You have to do the vice chair.
Oh. So, do I hear a nomination for a new vice chair?
I nominate Sally.
Sure.
Okay, Sally Meadows has been nominated,
I'll second that.
seconded by Michael. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. There we go. That was easy.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, so that was number 4.
Oh,
Okay.
there you go.
Okay, that's done. Okay. Excuse me, I wasn't planning on doing this tonight. Okay, first item number 3 is a public hearing. It's 10 UP01 R. Smith / Los Altos Lutheran Church, which is on the corner of Cuesta and it's actually on 460 South Almonte Avenue. Use permit modification. Who's going to be presenting that?
I will present it.
Okay.
Good evening, Chair Moisen and Commissioners. The project before you tonight is a modification to an existing use permit to operate a private preschool at the lower level of an existing building. The building is located on the Los Altos Lutheran Church property. As stated before, on the corner of South Almonte and Cuesta Drive. The building is Lutheran Hall, which is located in the middle of the property. The preschool operations would be at the lower level. As you can see in the elevation at the top, there is a fellowship hall on the top story, and then the classrooms are at the lower level, which is adjacent to the existing amphitheater and faces Cuesta Drive with the rear of the building facing residential properties. This is a floor plan of the existing building. As of right now, the use permit allows use of the front half of the building, which is classrooms 1 through 4, the library, and the front half of the fireside room. The expanded use would allow for use of all lower level rooms. In the lower level rooms, just for reference, this is the rear of the building, and the lower level rooms are located approximately 5 feet below adjacent grade with a 6-foot tall fence on top. This will help limit noise to the residences behind, which was the reason for limiting the classroom uses to the front half of the building with the first use permit. The modification request also includes increasing the number of students from 25 to 30 kids distributed into classes of 10 kids, extending the hours to 6 p.m. to address the needs of working parents, and allow for flexible, non-conditioned use of the outdoor play area at the front of the property, which you can see by the street on Cuesta. For the record, we did send out revised conditions, and we added condition number 5 to reflect the use of the all lower level rooms. With the requested modifications, they meet all use permit findings. Therefore, staff is recommending that PTC recommend approval of the modification to City Council. And I can answer any questions you may have.
I have a question.
You want to start? Go ahead.
My question is, this has been functioning under a use permit of different conditions. Have there been any complaints to the city about the use permit?
There haven't been any complaints about the use permit. It has been a use that's been on the property since 1971 under a couple different use permits. They have been modified throughout the years, but the number of students has ranged from 15 to 20 to 25, and now they're requesting 30 to be distributed into 3 different classrooms, so 10 students each.
Plus, you mailed 500, and everyone within 500 feet, which included 133 different households, and I don't think anyone's here in the neighborhood which somewhat.
Wait.
Huh? Did you?
Directly next door.
Okay, I don't see you as a speaker.
We don't see that as a problem.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right.
Just wanted to hear about it.
Okay, all right. There is one here from, as a neighbor. Any other questions?
You answer,
Michael? No. Okay, discussion? Sally, do you have anything you want to say?
Presentation by the
Is there going to be a presentation by the church?
The applicant is here. He doesn't have a different presentation for you, but he can
Okay.
answer any questions.
Okay. He's here to answer questions if anybody has a direct question with him. No? Okay, any discussion?
Close the public hearing?
Close public hearing? Take me a while, it'll take me a while. I'll get into it.
Exactly.
You,
With that, I'll entertain a motion.
okay.
You want
Well, don't you want
conversation?
some discussion?
I thought there wasn't any.
The only, so I'll start
Okay,
with.
sure.
Yeah, the only question I would have had has been answered now, whether any neighbors had anything to say about it, and they were all noticed. So it
Yes.
looks to me, it makes absolute sense, will impinge on nobody that I can tell,
Mm-hmm.
and it will make it so much easier for the parents.
Yes.
My only concern was the noise level of opening up the back, but I don't see that it's a problem if nobody else does.
I'll make a motion to approve the modification of the use as revised.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion? All in favor? Just go
Aye.
quickly. I'm one that moves things along, just so you all know.
So the city attorney, remember, said,
Pardon me?
the city attorney reminded us that we need to say that it carried unanimously of all the commissioners present.
That's not something that you make a note of? I have to say that?
You say it so he makes a note of it.
Okay, and then it's carried, motion is carried unanimously, okay.
Right.
I have to remember something else?
It's a tough job.
Okay,
Rolling along.
okay, the neighborhood, next is the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program, NTMP for, how do you pronounce that, Laux Drive? Laux? Laux Drive? I'm assuming everybody watched
Lux Avenue.
Avenue. Oh, it says
It
Drive.
says drive on the.
It says Drive on.
We'll correct it.
Oh, over here it says Avenue. Okay.
Mr. Chair, Transportation Services Manager Novanario will be presenting tonight, and as soon as we get queued up.
David, are you going to correct?
Excuse me?
The agenda was wrong. It's an avenue, not a drive.
Item number 4.
Oh,
Just FYI. Just don't want to carry it on to the minutes that you put it back up.
See where it's in,
You see it?
can you see where it says that,
Item-
where it says number 4,
At the end, it says Lokes Drive.
Drive? Are you with us, David? Can you see it?
got it.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, good, all right. All right,
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Cedric Novanario, City's Transportation Services Manager. Tonight, we are coming to the PTC to present the Laux Avenue Neighborhood Traffic Management Plan, and I believe this is the furthest a project has come in the past 8 to 10 years regarding NTMP. To summarize, the NTMP, basically it's an effort to calm traffic on local streets, residential streets. The NTMP has several checkpoints, one of them being a petition which the residents submitted to the city. We collect data of both volume and speed, and as stated in the staff report, for example, there's 2 criteria for traffic data that has to be met, one of them being 800 vehicles per day is the volume criteria, and the 85th percentile speed, which is the criteria we use to determine speed limits, it has to be 32 miles per hour. In the case of Laux Avenue, it met the volume threshold for this. Then we had a series of neighborhood meetings. We had 3 neighborhood meetings. One was to discuss the program in general to the residents who weren't intimately involved in the beginning. We gave them examples of what has been done in this city, as well as other examples in other parts of the Bay Area. And to give me feedback on what measures they like to see on their street. As noted in the staff report, the Laux residents wanted to take a look at a similar treatment to what is on North Clark, the chicane movement along North Clark, but because Laux is so narrow, we couldn't design it to accommodate two-way traffic. So the next option would have been, or for their purposes, a speed hump. So we designed the speed hump. In the second and third meetings, we presented those plans. The third meeting, we asked for them to, if they wanted the project to go to ballot. So they went to ballot. There would have been 2 humps on Laux Avenue between San Antonio and Mercedes, and 2 humps again between Mercedes and and Los Altos Avenue. Based on the voting criteria, 55% of the residents on both sides of the street were in favor of the project. However, when it came down to the affected neighbors wanting that particular device in front of their house, only the section between Mercedes and Los Altos Avenue achieved the 66 2/3% vote. So the project as it stands now is 2 speed humps on Laux Avenue between Mercedes and Los Altos Avenue. Last month, I presented this project to the BPAC for their pedestrian and bicycle concerns. In general, they were in favor of the speed hump project, and they asked that we make the speed hump less narrow to provide access for cyclists to go around the speed hump. And so on the screen you have is the overall shot of Laux Avenue. The next shot shows the locations for the speed humps. Adjacent to the speed humps, we're going to have the speed hump advisory signs, and they're placed there so that we can discourage cars from going around the speed hump on a flat shoulder like this. You'll notice that there are transverse lines that lead up to the speed hump. Those are there because Laux is dark at night, no street lighting, but also they're reflective. So that if there's an emergency from Santa Clara Valley Fire or emergency response, they can see the hump going into the area. We will also be providing edge lane striping as part of our striping project to help overall to make Laux feel more narrow, to discourage speeds. And what else? And the BPAC recommended this to go to council for review. The next slide shows, a typical cross-section of the speed hump. I also did reach out to Santa Clara Valley Fire regarding if there are any concerns regarding speed humps on this street. They did not, as long as we used this particular detail on this route. Ready for questions?
I have some questions.
I do too.
Well, start with you.
I have a few questions about process. You said this is the first project in 8 to 10 years to get this far. How many petitions do we typically get in a year?
I would say 2 to 3 per year. Like for this particular year, we had Laux, we had Altos Oaks, we had and then a couple other streets, but the petition process where it usually doesn't go any further, but this one went further than anybody else.
And then on the other street where it wasn't approved, if this gets put into effect and the neighbors really like how it's working, if they decide on this other street that they,
From Mercedes to Los Altos?
right, the other half, that they want to like a revote, can they do that, or do they have to start at the beginning again?
I think they would have to start at the beginning again, but it would probably be a faster track because we have history of all the other meetings already.
And then the last question is, if the particular neighbors who are closest affected, the ones that require 66%, is it one of those things where you can move the bumps to a different area that maybe the neighbors are in favor of it?
In this particular section, we already moved it twice around to neighbors that were okay with the humps
Got
being
it.
there.
So you can find any that you could get 66% on that other location?
Yeah, as long as the spacing's okay for us. We want to make sure that the distance is such that speeds are consistent throughout the whole street. On the other side of Laux, where it didn't pass, it was difficult because there were a lot of driveways that were offset, plus intersections. So we had to stay away from the driveways and the intersections, and at that point, there weren't many other options to place the speed humps.
Okay, got it.
So my question is about the traffic that's going through there. The 1466, is that through all the way from one end to the other? Is it they're coming down to Mercedes and taking a right?
That's so we laid tube counters on both sections of Laux. So the difference between one section and another section was very minimal.
So that's
It's pretty consistent,
So what you're saying is there's 1466 cars going
back and forth.
back and forth
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah.
That is a cut-through, a major cut-through.
Okay.
So it's good. I was going to ask, in the report, I noticed, Cedric, that you talked that the striping is actually going to be the whole length of locks.
Yeah.
I thought you should mention that again, because at least those people have the benefit of that aspect.
Yeah. So in our ballots, the residents asked us to give them options. So the first option was the 4 speed humps with edge lane striping plus some median islands at Mercedes and Laux to discourage people from making free right turns from Mercedes onto Laux. The second one was just speed humps. The third one was just the island. And I think the last one was do nothing at all. So because we have annual striping every year, I asked my engineer to throw that on to their annual striping.
Do you have a question?
I do. I understand the cross-section. I'm trying to understand, is it one continuous hump across the street?
Yes, it's built that way.
It's
So
built
it's
that way.
it's a 12-foot
Wide.
wide section, and yeah, it's one continuous piece.
And then BPAC asked for 1 foot to allow bicycles to go unimpeded along the
Sides.
sides.
Yes.
And it looks like you've got 2 feet here, so it's meeting that condition. Am
Yeah.
I reading this right?
Yeah, so just based on the aerials and our distances, we have enough room to do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
I have a couple questions. One is, so looking at the traffic data, the threshold was met on the traffic that went through the street, and the speed was just under. So what does the neighborhood hope to achieve in terms of objective? Are they looking to decrease the number of cars that will use that as a cut-through and or decrease the speed?
I think in this case, both instances is what they desire to achieve. I know when Box was on El Camino, lots of traffic was Box generated per se, and that's gone away. I don't know how the difference it is now. Perhaps the residents can tell you about that a little bit later. But Laux, people want if they want to not use El Camino, Laux is the next closest option.
Right, okay. And then one additional question. I'm not looking for a technical explanation, but it does state, staff report says votes were weighted to ensure that a 55% vote for any choice would be obtained. So there were 4 options. How does that work? I mean, if you had narrowed it down to the top 2 options and then sent that out to the neighborhood to vote on, would it look different than what you've presented? What is your...
Well, before we left that third meeting with the residents, we talked about what 4 options do you want to see? And those are the 4 options that were asked for us to do the ballot for.
Right, but you said that they've been weighted somehow so that you would ensure that there was a 55% vote for any choice to be obtained. I'm
So
just
in the
curious,
ballot,
without technical details.
In the ballot, we asked to rank them 1 through 4.
Okay,
So that way, we looked at the number to see how we can weight it to make sure 55% was achieved. Otherwise, there'd be no project.
right,
Right.
okay,
Interesting.
We have a stalemate, essentially, because everybody wanted something different.
right. Or you have to do another vote with
Exactly.
fewer choices, okay.
Yeah.
But you're comfortable that this actually does represent the option?
Yeah.
I see heads nodding. Okay, thank you.
Mike, you got a question?
I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Do you have questions? If BPAC only needs 1 foot, by doing 2 feet, are we creating a situation where cars will also try to go around? I mean, half the car. You know how sometimes people do that?
That could be a concern, but we can play with the sign placement to make sure that doesn't happen. But
Go back to that. Take the screen back to the one that shows the sign placing. Yeah.
so we can certainly give them 1 foot. We have to when we go out there and actually mark the locations, we have to see what's actually adjacent on the shoulders. If it's dirt shoulders, depending on what kind of tires you have, it might be okay. If it's slick tires, it might not be a good surface to ride on. But we'd have to, when we go out and actually mark the locations, we'll actually play with the widths of the speed hump.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Of course.
I'm a little bit confused by what you said, because you said about the placement of the sign impacting that,
So-
but isn't the sign on the...
The sign's on the
On the
shoulder
curb.
side of the road.
Yeah.
So we wanted to place it there to discourage cars from completely going around the speed hump.
Understood.
Yeah.
That's that red indication?
The red diamonds. Yeah.
Any further questions? I'm assuming no one from the public is going to be speaking, right? Well, no, I mean, on behalf of that, right? It's just, no. Okay, I have two questions. I have two people that want to speak. Let's start off with Donald Gardine.
Ladies and gentlemen, commissioners, thank you. I have very little to add other than a great job that Cedric Novanario has done for our community, myself and my neighbors in this process. He has been exceedingly patient with all of the different angles that everyone felt that they needed to at least shed light on, and it's amazing that we're where we are so fast. Yeah, our neighborhood is desperately in need of some traffic relief, and I think that everybody is very pleased with how things have progressed, and hopefully this will be a beacon for anybody who wants traffic calming in their neighborhood in the future. That it does work. You can get somewhere with it, and hopefully we can have an effective result. Thank you.
Mary Shugard.
Hi, I'm Mary Skugard, 1055 Roma Lane, longtime resident of Roma Lane, which is off of Laux, which has become a real cutoff for everybody who doesn't want to go El Camino. The other day, I even called the city again because there was a huge limousine there. They have parked there, they drive there, and there are little children and lots of pedestrians on that area. The reason that I'm here tonight, I'm supporting everything that they want to do between Mercedes and Los Altos Avenue. I am on the first street off of Village Court. I had understood with the last presentation that I heard that the reflective striping was going to continue on the area between Mercedes and Village Court. It is difficult to see at night. It is difficult for the cars to see. I would like to be sure that that happens. Also, both Roma and Ray come off on one side. They are not two streets, but they are long courts. And we have parking, and I had somebody stop right on that corner the other day and had to toot the horn in order to drive down the street to get into my own house. In other words, stripe around that corner. A very inexpensive way to help slow things down would be to paint 25 miles per hour on the street at the beginning of Laux Avenue, and as you get from Village Court on to Laux. All we have going into Laux, all those people coming off of San Antonio, coming in there, is a little sign that says, no cars over 3 tons. It's a black and white underneath and shaded by a big oak tree. It would be nice to have maybe a little yellow sign saying, this is residential, slow down, and maybe even paint the stake like they have with the red one at the other corner. So anyway, that is my input. I have not support the rest of it. I think they've done a very good job. I was not here for any of the meetings here, but I have been noisy on other issues, as you know.
Thank you for coming, Mary. Thank you. Now, it goes from here to council, doesn't it? So, do we vote on it?
Wait a minute. I think that Cedric has something he'd like
to... Oh, yeah, I'll close. Any further comment? Close public comment. Thank you.
So we're asking the PTC to recommend this to go to council to add to the program budget.
If we recommend it to council, is there funding available?
So part of the process is a 50/50 cost share of the project. So once they provide us the 50% share, then the council will provide their share. And then we have a project. Then we go out to bid, finish off the design and go out to bid.
So let me clarify, the 50% is coming from the neighborhood?
Yes.
Ah, as in to put your money where your mouth is. Very good. Okay, thank you.
We've, aside from the 3 meetings I've had with the residents, we probably had 7, 8 meetings just with immediate people in the area, just to make sure they understood the NTMP.
Okay. Any further comments? No? Okay, I'm not,
So do we make a motion
Should we make a motion?
to approve,
Well,
to recommend to the city
to
council
recommend, okay, but we're not going to be adding.
that they go forward with the management transfer,
Yes.
Do we want to be specific
neighborhood
about that motion?
management program for Lokes Avenue?
Well-
In terms of if you wanted to support doing things in addition,
That's what I mean.
like, along the lines of the public comment, I'd
Yes.
have to ask.
Cedric looks funny. Wait a minute.
So if you're asking about the striping
Yes.
questions, so we already have those planned as part of our striping project.
How about speed signs?
We can ask our maintenance staff to do
I
that.
mean, that makes perfect sense to me.
So that won't be part of this motion here.
It would be, or would
Would
not?
not be.
Right.
Yeah.
This is their general.
So
Okay.
I
One more
move,
question.
Yeah, of course, no.
no, I was going to make a motion, so
thought I
ask
was
your
good.
question.
I guess to me, is there a way to make it such that we restrict the gap to 1 foot as was, are we inputting it all on the design of this?
You can.
I mean,
You can.
because to me, it seems like if we want this to be effective, we want to minimize the ability for people to drive around it.
So the BPAC requested for 1 foot.
Right.
So we offered 2 because we don't know what kind of users will be going there. So if the PTC asks for 1 and the BPAC recommends at least a 1 foot, then you're in agreement.
And actually, I think Cedric also said it wasn't clear what the verge material was. So that might have some effect on whether the width would be 1 foot or 2 foot. If,
I personally bike down that road a lot.
Oh, yes?
And so I'm concerned because there's not much shoulder.
yeah.
And that's would be the concern, there's not much. But a foot to ride your bike is not bad.
You're wider than a foot, Mike.
I know I'm wider in foot, but, bike
Oh,
tires
the
only
wheels aren't.
3 inches.
And when we go build the hump and we be laid out and we stake the sign out, we can certainly have the BPAC or Commissioner McTighe ride it to make sure that's fine.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
So should we make if I'm in favor of putting a speed sign, should I make that as part of the motion, or is that you don't need to?
No, I wouldn't think you need to because we already have that planned.
So I would like to make a motion that we recommend to the city council the approval of the neighborhood traffic management program for Lokes Avenue as presented.
I second the motion.
Okay, discussion?
I have to say that the North Clark chicanes, in my opinion, are the worst solution. I used that
agree.
street, and I think this neighborhood was incredibly fortunate that they couldn't get them because I think the speed humps will provide a better resolution to their problem. And I laud this group for sticking to the process and making it work. So,
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, let me note that we have a unanimous decision from the
By all council, by all commissioners
commissioners.
present,
By
that
all-
are present. So there's one.
Okay. Who's going to be making the neighborhood traffic management? Oh, no, we already did that.
Number 5, flip it over.
joint meeting.
So we're talking about the joint meeting with the city council that they discussed when I was at the city council about 2 or 3 weeks ago, right?
Yes, we're scheduled to go to council on May 3rd for a joint meeting, our annual joint meeting to go over, really just go over our accomplishments and our goals. We don't have to have our work plan approved by them per se, but the council wants to provide input on it. Our work plan is largely legislative and directed by our own development review activity and our transportation applications, such as this neighborhood traffic management plan and safe routes to school and those types of applications. And then there is one more discretionary part about
providing advice on transportation-related matters. We are planning, the Transportation Services Manager will be preparing a report for April 7th for you, just background on what we are doing, the traffic projects that are in the works, and then also some, he's going to be going over some new ideas such as the Vision Zero program, which is something that the Bike and Pedestrian Commission is looking at developing policies that reduce our traffic accidents and fatalities to zero would be the goal. And so we're working toward, we have 3 meetings really where we could talk about this as a broad subject. Tonight, April 7th, and we could even on April 21st, just so we have plenty of time to delve into wherever the commission wants to go with that. I didn't have any specific recommendations. I think from what I heard the last year, there's an emphasis to try and to work on more transportation-related items, and so I think we're poised to do that, and I look forward to Mr. Novanario's report. And then I think when we get that, we might be able to create some specific goals with regard to that transportation element. Besides that, I've listed your accomplishments for the last year, and if you have any questions about any of that, I would be more than happy to answer them.
So I had 2 ideas that I'm not sure if it fits or not. So my first, the first idea is about story polls and whether that can be revisited again. That was something that the commission decided not to approve, and the council overturned it. And having looked at the Miramonte project, I have a very not biased, but I still feel very strongly about the.
We have a small sample. I mean, that's the only project that it's been applied to. We have the 4880 El Camino is a multiple family residential project that's just been submitted for a 5-story building on El Camino. So that's going to also test the policy. So we might wait to see how that goes.
Well, is the timing such that by the time we had the joint meeting, that one will have been required to put its story polls up?
It's possible.
Okay.
We're just now providing input to them, and I don't have it calendared, but we could. It's possible we could review it in April.
Good question.
That's an engineering.
But you remember, the current mayor at that time said that they can do that. Anybody can do that. She's an engineer and she knew, so we should see how this plays out.
Well, that's why I just want to bring it up as part of maybe a joint session later or something that says, when it passed, it only passed 3-2.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a process during the year for the council to go back and look at that decision and say,
But they need 2 council members willing to put it on the agenda.
Well, we can add it to our goals. There's no problem doing that.
Oh, good.
And we can look at it throughout the year and
make a recommendation to
we can
council.
make a recommendation to council.
I think we should. I think it
Let's
should.
do that.
Maybe later in the year, once we've had a few.
I've let all of the city council people know individually that I didn't like the idea. So.
I
bet I'm not
thought
the only-
we were very clear at the time. It didn't seem to resonate with enough to make a difference, but, having seen examples, perhaps there will be a change.
Right. The second thing I had was the Loyola Corner specific plan update.
Ooh.
I know that's will be part of our goals for next year or this coming year.
We're actually working on it.
Right, but it's not listed anywhere.
No.
I'm going to be
It's-
going.
It's already a council-directed item.
Okay.
I'm going to be
Yeah.
reviewing that. I was at that city council, and I'll go over what the process is.
Oh, good.
I was at that city
Okay.
council. Well, you were too. You were.
I'm just when I looked at this list, I was just thinking,
Those
what
are
are
the
those?
things-
What are the things that I'm concerned about?
I took notes, and
Yeah. And the last thing, just for our new commissioners, the annual project tour, what we do is go out to all the projects that have been completed with the plans that were given to us so that we can compare what was
Well,
given
not
to us.
all of them, selected ones.
Selected ones, right, I should say. And then help us to define how to look at that. So that's what this annual project tour is.
And just a little bit on that, we, as the last direction I received on that was we're going to pick up on the projects downtown that weren't complete the last time we did this, and review those. And 400 Main, namely, wasn't done, and the hotel wasn't done.
Condominiums.
And then we are going to look.
3rd Street also, how about 3rd Street? That's almost done.
It will be done by.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at with anything. It's just we're going to pick up some of the projects that we didn't. And Pilgrim or Terraces of Los Altos, I think, was also added to the list.
Palo Alto Medical Foundation.
Yeah, Palo Alto Medical.
Oh, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Altos Oaks.
Los Altos Oaks, yeah.
All the major projects.
As a sidebar, I was surprised to hear that Altos Oaks was applying for traffic calming because the street's built like a corkscrew. I mean, talk about having to add chicanes. They're defined. They define the nature of it. And short of, something out of the movies with someone speeding through, I can't see how you can speed on that street.
Well, I think it was the other leg, the straight leg of
residential.
it.
Not the business part.
Because there's a dip in the street, right where
Golden, yes.
Golden is, that you have to slow down
I
to.
know.
But once you go past that on your way to Miramani,
It's a straight.
zoom, people go straight. And, yeah.
Interesting.
Okay.
Do you need anything from
What
us?
time is this meeting? I didn't see it on the.
Right now, it's I think it's 8:15
Oh.
p.m. We are the last commission to go.
Okay, better add that in.
On what date is
So
that?
May 3rd.
May 3rd.
May 3rd, and as soon as I get official word from the city clerk, we'll pass that along, but 8 o'clock or so on May 3rd. I'm not sure where, probably over at Hillview somewhere. And my goal tonight was really just to introduce this, get us thinking about it, and I think once we receive Cedric's report, then we'll be able to dig into maybe developing some specific goals. And that is something that we need to do. As you'll notice, the format of this work plan is going to change. The city clerk wants us to put it in more of a more discrete goals. So in terms of advice on transportation issues, we might have something specific in there. I think that's probably the only area where we might expand it a little bit, and I may change the wording of how the goals are written for our next review. But really, we're just looking to you for direction on what you want, what your goals want to be, and we'll review that with council.
When do you think you'll be finalizing that?
Well, for our next meeting, I think on April 7th,
Okay, good.
when what I'll do is I'll just put this on as a standing item until we decide either we're done or we're going to the meeting in May, and then that'll allow us to work on it. And so at the next meeting, I'll take a stab at reformatting it a bit. And
Okay.
I don't think, I'm not sure I'll be adding any content, but it may be a little bit looking. So I did have some comments about what our agendas are looking like, but I'll wait until we go into commissioner reports and comments for that.
Well, I was at the city council meeting where 1540 Miramani Avenue was up for a vote, and I took notes, but after I saw what they wrote in the paper, they were better than my notes. So I'll read off of without mentioning names, the council members seem to agree that the building itself was flat, square, and ugly.
I'm sure they didn't say ugly.
They did say ugly, quote.
Oops.
Oops. And just like we said, and particularly you, it had that boxy look, and it lacked the articulation that sort of defines more of a mixed-use project than that. This was merely a box.
Right.
Could have been an
It said looked like an office building.
looked like an office
I recall
building, and they
saying
said the
so.
same thing. So ultimately what happened is that they voted to postpone any
Continue.
decision, continue it, and that they instructed staff to prepare a draft update and environmental assessment in time for a community meeting, a joint meeting between the city council and PTC in April or May. And again, that will involve both us meeting. And they also wanted greater community input, which means that if we have a planning commission meeting with these folks, they want to have more people from the outside notified and involved in their recommendations. I wouldn't be surprised if the city council even encouraged, while we have joint meetings, the residents to come in and share their thoughts on it. This all came about when, and this came up, when Bunker came to us with a three-story building and seemingly wasn't willing to listen after 3 attempts to us. And it's 3 strikes and you're out. And each time we told him what we thought, and each time he came back trying to push the envelope to where it was unacceptable, to a point where it pushed it to the city council. He's still involved in a lawsuit. He actually called my office the week before last and wanted to have a meeting, and I refused to have a meeting while he was in the middle of I said, I'm not going to get involved in a private meeting and when you're in the middle of a lawsuit, so count me out of that one. And I responded in an email so he'd have the record of it. I think while we're at the city council, and you were there, Mike, the majority of the people that spoke made it clear that they favored a 2-story as opposed to a 3-story, which makes me believe that neither the planning commission, and I'm not speaking for you, I'm just giving my opinion, nor the city council, I would be very surprised if they approve a 3-story project in that area. If you do, I think we'll do so against the better wishes of our community. So,
How many people were noticed? What's the noticing radius for
Of
that building?
Well, of that project
That
was
particular-
500 feet.
So residents within 500 feet, that put them on the other side of
A few.
a few. Okay,
Yes. Foothill is
pretty wide.
150 feet wide, so it picked up a few.
So do we have any other,
Well, just.
well, I
just
wonder
so
if
you
there's
know,
any other process that,
1,000 Fremont Avenue, our building, it was not
Noticed.
noticed because we were beyond 500 to give
I
us
was
a-
interested in, do we have any other process for which the radius is larger than 500 square feet in our code?
We don't, but for the specific plan effort, which the council was also talking about here, where that was their subject, in trying to get more public input, we're planning on providing a 1,000-foot radius for the specific plan update effort. And we have an interest list. There's quite a few people that participated in the prior project, and we've been in communication with the ones that have asked to be informed. And so we should have a lot better public input for the specific plan than we've had for a particular project. And one of the challenges that we're looking at now is the council asked us to involve the public more in our drafting of the specific plan. What we were going to do is take a crack at redrafting it, and really not changing anything, but just bringing it up to date and pulling out the superfluous items.
David, is this,
And I think the thought was, and then we were going to present that to the commission in a public forum with the public noticing, and the public seemed like that wasn't enough. And so I'm not sure, I don't think we've decided yet we may just hold a study session or a public workshop with what we're coming up with, and then finalize that following a public hearing, and then come to here, to this body.
well, then, the question is, isn't the city council slated to review the hearing, to review this project on March 22nd?
They are, but it's not, the project's not ready. They're still working on, one of the directives was to try and minimize the railing in front of the building on Miramonte, which means the sidewalk railing that was where the step was in the grade. And so they're looking at the whole grading along Miramonte and B Street and seeing what they can do. We couldn't quite pull it together for the 22nd. So
it's not going to be.
It's not. It's on their agenda because it was noticed to that day certain.
Yes.
But council will be continuing it to their next meeting in April 12th.
If you look at the staff report, it says the meeting's it's delayed till whatever.
Right.
So on.
Well, that's why it doesn't make sense to me to review it before the staff report comes out. I mean, why would?
Are you
Is that
talking
not- I
about
don't
us
think-
or the city council?
Pardon me? City council.
Yeah.
Oh, we're talking about two different things. We're talking about they wanted more public input on this specific plan revisions.
But
They
won't,
weren't asked.
I see them being tied together because the
But this
big
project's in the
controversy
plan.
with the specific, one of the big controversies with the specific plan is whether or not staff interprets it to be 3 stories, which is what led us here in the first place.
We've
So-
conceded.
But the
We've
building's-
conceded that the plan says 2 stories at this point.
This one's 2 stories, but it,
Well, the specific plan. I mean, this project meets the more conservative reading of this.
so you're saying you don't need this, you don't need the specific plan for this one, okay?
Well,
I
actually,
agree.
and it's in the pipeline. That's the reason we were looking at it at all, is that was under,
It got in
Before
before
the
the
moratorium.
moratorium happened.
so it has to play by the rules by which they started the game.
I would just add that
Mike,
I think that the 2 versus 3 story question is a litmus test for our entire town. And I don't know that the town is so uniform in their position. I think that there is a strong vocal group that feels strongly, and it, I think, breaks down. I know in the parking committee, there was a survey we saw where 48%
It's 50-50,
of the city wants to see more development, greater density, and are okay with 3 stories generally, and 48% of the city does not want to see greater density or development. So the question over 2 versus 3 is often really, do you want to see development or not? And so I think that there may actually be also a pretty strong, maybe silent contingency that does not feel that way. And at some point,
it's going to shift.
it may shift. But I wouldn't say so. I think maybe the 2-story continues, and maybe it continues for another 25 years, and maybe one building in 25 years gets built, and then maybe the city decides density is a bigger priority, and
and they
the
lead
proportions
instead of react.
evolve and
I mean,
change.
even-
Well, and
So-
it could be one of the options that if we get involved with the specific plan, I would take a look at is, why wouldn't we want to approach Loyola Corners in the same manner that we approach, let's say, First Street, where we're allowing 3 stories on the western portion of First Street, where we might consider allowing 3 stories on Fremont, which is the furthest away from the residential, and then inset towards where this building is and closer to residential, and look at 2 stories. I mean, why wouldn't we want to look at that area in the same way that we looked at downtown? So you don't have to uniformly say it's going to be 2 or it's going to be 3. You could say, hey, it's going to be 3 here and 2 there. I mean, you can look at it 2 different ways.
I think we're definitely going to have this conversation as part of the specific plan update.
I hope so.
What we're doing though is we're not updating it now. What we're saying is we're just going to clarify it, but as that in that process, there'll be an opportunity to test those regulations and ask, are those appropriate, and in that public forum, and engaging the neighborhood, the business community, the property owners, the residents, and all of that. So there's definitely advocates for both positions, and I'm sure we'll have a good dialogue about that as we go through it. So.
Was there any other public hearings?
Are there any other public hearings?
Yeah, I've got, I
Welcome to
drew,
the PTC.
right, I drew the short straw, the 5-hour city council meeting last week, but I listened after the fact, and I did not listen to all 5 hours, so there's my disclaimer.
I did the same thing, by the way.
Yeah. Well, it's just
Thank God for
easier.
online, right?
Right, yes. So item number 4, there was, it was a BPAC item, but potentially of interest to the group. So essentially, the council received the update from staff and directed staff to establish a Class 1 restricted hours bike lane and improved sidewalks on Covington between Miramonte and Eastwood, so just before Block, not all the way to Block. And there was some amount of discussion that actually went beyond the BPAC recommendation, which was just to improve sidewalks and signage only. But the council felt pretty strongly that the restricted hours bike lane was important. Neighbors, of course, as you would expect, were not very happy about a restricted hours bike lane. But council did suggest that instead of it all being on the Block side of Covington, that it just be on the Block side on the way to school hours, and then the opposite side on the way. So the restricted hours would only affect one side of the street at one time and the other side of the street at the other time. So that is the direction that they gave staff, even though there were neighbors who were not real happy with that. So
David, I have a question. We didn't see any of the Covington material. I mean, BPAC did. Is there a reason why? I mean, we do have traffic in our name.
I think it was something that came through the BPAC and directly to council. So on those types of items, we do it at the request of council.
Okay, any other?
I went to the state. What was it? California Cities Planning Conference.
You did.
Planning Commissioners Conference.
You are
Which is
such
really
a-
great.
Such a good
Planning
point.
Commissioners Academy.
David and I were there, and as well as the city manager showed up one day, and Steve did too. And it was good. What was really great was there was not only they had, like, I would call if you're a beginner, you know, here's all the process stuff, but they also had parallel to a lot of those classes were things like water management and what cities are doing for the water and the drought, that the snowpack is not going to be the way that people are going to have to think about it from cities, and the reuse, and which was interesting to hear. They also talked about, I forgot, a couple other issues like that, complete streets, the future of auto vehicles or self-driving vehicles, and where everything was, and roughly in 5 years they project that there'll be self-driving vehicles for sale, and there'll be a major element in transportation flow
In 5 years?
in 5 years. that they're really close to making all this happen. And the DMV spoke and talked about liability and, you know, some of the issues they're facing. What I thought was one proposal, and it wasn't with this group, it was the opening speaker, I think, which was the bus rapid transit lanes that are, you know, they've been talking about. Wherever, just they meant in general as a concept, but you take the BRT lane, and instead of having buses on it, you have self-driving vehicles because they can negotiate with other vehicles. They can be closer, and actually buses may disappear, or because you can get these little smart cars where you have two people sit in that, you know, you're going to go somewhere, and then it just creates this train down the BRT, and then when it needs to, oh, you're going to turn left here. You sort of brake the train. That car exits, and then it gets back together and keeps going. So it eliminates a lot of the hassles of of the traffic, you know, the people that don't have the autonomous vehicles and some of the issues. I mean, it was fascinating. I mean, which is why I always like going to these conferences, because it's.
I listen to books on tape whenever I'm reading. Now I'll be able to read a book.
But the thing is that there is money in the budget for new commissioners in particular to take advantage of these meetings annually. And David usually announces that if you're interested in going, raise your hand, because they are really valuable. And they're often fun, and you get to go with staff and get to know them better.
Where was it this year?
It was at San Ramon.
I was going to say, if you get a tan like that, I'm in.
No, not at all. It was rainy and cold.
So you went to all the meetings?
Yeah, I went to all the meetings. Usually they have one. This year was Northern California. Next year will be in Southern California.
Is there anybody that wants to add anything that we to the?
David.
I have a quick announcement. Two things. One, I wanted to just give you a heads up on our agendas coming up. April 7th, we talked about the traffic report and more joint meeting preparation. April 21st, we're going to review the city's capital improvement plan for consistency with the general plan.
That's the one that we got recently from Marcia?
Yes. And it's not as onerous as it looks. Our approach, which seems to have been working the last few years, is to really just focus on the new projects and to determine whether those are compliant with the general plan or not, because we've already seen all the other ones. But then also it'll be an opportunity to focus on the priorities, and if we want to indeed ask for something new. We also have some code amendments that we're putting together for the 21st. So the next few meetings we have some items. There's also a personnel announcement. The city has hired a community development director named John Biggs. He will be starting on March 30th. He comes to us from Pismo Beach and Pacific Grove. He's been directors in both of those communities. So we're going to welcome him at the end of the month, and you'll probably see him at your April meetings.
Great. Anything else?
Slam that. Go for it.